Hello again, everyone. Here we go. Hi again. I'm so happy to be with y'all. I'm getting ready to jump into the message. I have just one thing that I want to tell you really quick. There was so much happening at the beginning of service, so I know that things get lost at the beginning of service. Another thing that I wanted to share with you about serving is there's opportunities. The worship team is always looking for people who love worship. And tonight you saw up here two 8th graders actually singing. You saw an 11th grader on the drums, like serving, worshiping, using their talents for the Lord. And so I know that the worship team is looking for people to serve, specifically in 4.5. That's usually where people start, is in 4.5. It's so cool to serve in there and to worship in there. So if you're interested at all in that, there's going to be a QR code on the screen. You can just scan that real quick, fill it out. Let them know that you're interested. Someone will be touching base with you about it so that you can maybe start serving in a really cool way in the church. And especially this summer, it's going to be really cool to start getting going in the summer. It's an awesome opportunity. So I love that our church helps people who have talents that were given to them by the Lord, helps them develop them and use them to bring glory to his name. I just think that's so cool. So we have that. Also, make sure you're following our Instagram so that you know about some summer events that we have coming up, even though we don't have Hope students for the month of June and July. Boo! I know, it's so sad. But I will say, June 11th, we have a camp celebration, and whether you're going to camp or not, you don't have to go to camp to come. You need to come on June 11th at 7 o'clock. It's so cool. It's one of the coolest nights, I think, of the year. We have baptisms that night. Last year, I think we had 56 people baptized or 52 or something. It was wild. It was one of the coolest nights we've ever had. So even if you're not going to camp, you should come. It's going to be awesome. So that's happening. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, we are in a series called Names of God. We've been talking every week about a different name of God. God in the Bible calls himself by so many names. Now, his big, strong name is Yahweh, right? But we've talked, Yahweh or Jehovah, we've talked about Jehovah Rapha, our healer. We've talked about just Yahweh itself, hey, this is God. I am God. I am God. I am that I am, right? We've talked about that. Tonight we are talking about another name of God. Has anybody in this room ever heard glass drop? Shatter? Okay. More people have heard it, so you can't tell me that you haven't. If you're clumsy like me, maybe I'm just clumsy. You've heard it not just once, twice, 3 times. You hear it once a week. I don't know. I am literally one of the most clumsy people alive. And it sounds something like this. I didn't try this. I should have. Oh, okay, good. Whoever meets up here, don't step on that one piece of glass right there. I'll see if I can get it after. It sounds something like that. Shattering, glass shattering. Oftentimes when you hear it, it's something you remember. It scares you. It jolts. You're like, what the heck is happening? If you hear it when you are at a restaurant, oftentimes someone will drop something or a whole tray of plates or cups will drop, and everyone in the restaurant usually does what? Right? Or ignores it. Yes, or ignores it. I love when people are yes. I don't know, because I feel if it were me dropping it, I'd be I know, thank you. This is my life. Welcome to my life. In work, out of work, all the things. The worst is when you have something broken that means a lot to you. And I have something like this. A couple years ago, I was gifted these 2 really great bowls. You guys are not going to be surprised by this, but they're Disney themed. They're black and white. They're super cute. And it's not even about the fact that they're Disney themed. I do love that about them. But the cool thing is the size. They're this big, and they're this big, and I put all kinds of stuff in there. I made Greek bowls in there, taco bowls in there, salads. It's the perfect bowl for that. And a few months ago, my daughter was home from college, which she's about to be home soon for the summer, and I'm so excited. But she was doing the dishes for me, sweet angel baby, right? And she accidentally broke one of my bowls. And I was like, And she's like, I'm sorry. She was devastated that she had done it. And I'm like, girl, it's okay. It happens. Did you get cut? Trying not to make a big deal about it when my heart was like, my bowl, right? And I just thought, well, it is what it is. I had a nice run. We got it at like TJ Maxx, I think, and I just loved it. I know it's weird. Does anybody have something weird that you just love? Like, you're like, I love that, and I don't know why. It's weird, right? This is one of those things to me, okay? And if you don't, you will, or you're lying, okay? Either way, it doesn't matter. And so I just thought, well, whatever. What a major bummer that is. A few weeks later, got this package in the mail. My daughter had gone online, found this bowl, had it sent to me, bought it with her own money, which is a big deal, especially when you're a poor college student, right? And she had it sent to me and was like, hey, Mom, I just want to make sure that I know how much this meant to you. So, here it is. And I was like, you are literally the sweetest, the greatest. You can do no wrong. Until she does. And then she does do wrong, right? We have moments. I'm sure you have moments with your parents too. But there are times when things shatter, like this glass. The damage that was done to this glass is irreversible. It cannot be fixed. I'm telling you right now, this sucker will not be able to be fixed. And here's what's true, and what I know to be true is just like this glass, oftentimes it feels like our life shatters. And that there are things that happen to us or things that happen around us or that we're in the peripheral of, and it feels like our life just shatters. And I know this, our lives are more valuable than anything like this that's made of glass. And our life has this high value, but when it feels like our life is falling apart, where do we turn? What do we do? I know that we can experience, whether in our physical bodies or our souls, damage that seems permanent, irreversible. I believe that many of you in this room have had moments like that where it felt like glass shattering. A moment that just feeling that shattering, it was irreversible and the damage had been done and there's no way that you could be fixed or whole or broken. Maybe that moment for you was when your parents set you down to let you know that they were getting divorced. Maybe it's rejection from a close friend or a family member. Maybe it's finding out that you didn't make it on the team that you wanted to be on, or you didn't get the part you wanted or the position you wanted. Maybe someone you were close to got sick and got a really scary diagnosis and you're still battling through that. It could be that a family member or a friend passed away. I'll tell you this, at 41 years old, I've had a lot of moments like this over the years. My grandpa passing away a few years ago was a really big deal to me. Austin passing away a couple months ago was a big deal. Not getting chosen. We had put our name in. We had met this girl that we wanted to adopt, and not getting chosen to be her family was devastating to me and my husband. And again, when these things happened to me, I had this feeling of the floor falling out from under me. Getting just this sick feeling in my stomach. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm sure it's happened to you before too. The beautiful thing through all of that, though, is in our brokenness, shattered moments, especially if you're a Christ follower in this room, we've been given a promise by God himself, and that promise is peace. We see God talked about as peace in the Bible, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But we also see in Isaiah that there was a promise given, a prophecy given, that Jesus would come and that he would be the Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6 says this, "For a child is born to you, to us." Also, this you will recognize this because we read it a lot around Christmas time. "For a child is born to us, a son is given. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." This word in the Bible comes from a Greek word, and the way you say it is arene. I don't know. That's how I'm going to say it. But what it means is wholeness in life or completeness. Arene. Basically, when all of the essential parts are put together and joined together, that is peace. This gift of peace that God has given us is wholeness. So when we are whole, we feel peace. And what does that look like in our life? We're going to talk a little bit about it today. There's one place in the Bible, in all the Bible, that God reveals himself as Jehovah Shalom. It's in the Old Testament, and there's a man, his name is Gideon, and he became a judge of Israel, and he builds this altar to God and later names it or says, like, I'm dedicating this to Yahweh Shalom, Jehovah Shalom, which is the Lord is peace. But during the time when he built it, there was so much war going on and turmoil and just fear happening in the lives of the Israelites, and it was a lot. And God promises in this moment, when all of this stuff is happening, that his presence would be with Gideon, and that is when Gideon builds this altar to God. We can read about it in Judges 6:24. It says this, and Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and named it Yahweh Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. He saw God. He heard from God. He lived with God's promise, even in the midst of all the craziness that was going on around him. Then he built an altar to Jehovah Shalom, the God of peace, the God who was leading and guiding him in the midst of all the storms happening. He did this because being with God in God's presence was peace. As a follower of Jesus, you and I can experience the very peace that's talked about way back in Judges 6. This saying has been around for a long time, so a lot of you who are my age in this room are going to know it and hear it, and you're going to be like, yeah, I recognize that. But this is what it is. It's no God, no peace, or no God, no peace. I really believe that this is true in our lives. That when we know God, we can really experience his peace, because that is who God is, peace. But if we do not know God, then we will not have peace. The peace will be far from us. Something that we're always trying to grasp, but that we can never grab hold of. Without God, we won't experience peace. And I firmly believe that. So tonight, my question to you is this. Is your soul in pieces, or do you have his peace? Today, we're going to look at a story of when Jesus' disciples, they thought their lives were going to be gone. They thought they were in fear of a storm that was happening in their lives. You can find it in Matthew 8, starting in verse 23. It says this. Then Jesus got into the boat and started across the lake with his disciples. Suddenly, a fierce storm struck the lake, with waves breaking into the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, shouting, Lord, save us. We're going down. We're going to drown, but also we're going down. Jesus responded, why are you afraid? You have so little faith. Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and suddenly there was calm. The disciples were amazed. Who is this man? They asked. Even the winds and the waves obey him. The storms and the waves can represent life's way of leading us towards sin in our lives. Through chaos or chaotic events that are out of our control, oftentimes storms that happen lead us not to the Lord, but away from the Lord, because we want some semblance of control in our lives. And when it feels like there's storms coming and they're all around us and it feels like they're inside of us, we don't oftentimes run to God. In fact, we run away from God. The disciples, they were actually in a literal storm. I mean, we just read about it, but you might find yourself tonight in the midst of waves and storms, and it may be that there's things going on in your life that feel so out of control, that there's so much just sin happening, and there's chaos that's being caused because of it, and you just need peace. And the reason maybe it feels like there's so much chaos is I feel like it's like the cyclical thing where it's like chaos can oftentimes lead to sin. Sin can lead to chaos. Chaos can lead to sin. Like, I do think that it's like this pattern that it's so hard for us to get out of, because as human beings, and I am a human being, I want a sense of control in my life. And so oftentimes we can turn to sin looking for the control that we so desperately long for. But guess what? When we're turning to those sin things, it's not giving us control. It's actually helping us stay in chaos. It's crazy how that works and how the enemy tricks us into thinking like, oh, you can have control with this or that or whatever it may be, but really it's not giving us control. It's creating chaos in our lives. I really believe that the sin happens when we stop trusting in who God is, who he says he is, who he's promised to be in our lives. I think that sometimes we find ways to numb out because it feels like the chaos around us is so overwhelming to us. My challenge, my hope, my prayer tonight is that when you feel chaos in your life, no matter what's happening, that you turn to God, that you look to him, that you seek him. And that we don't turn to things that like are temporary fixes to our problems, but we turn to the one who made us, created us, who loves us. I really believe this, that to distrust God, like to not trust him with our lives, if you're a believer, like that is sin. The Bible, like again and again, tells us as believers that we are to trust God, that we are supposed to lean into him, that we're supposed to give him our life, our all, everything that we have. And when we don't do that and we're turning from God, that is the definition of sin, is turning from God. The disciples were so worried about what the storm could do on the outside, but Jesus is more worried about the sin and the sin on the inside and how it can change us, and it can literally shatter our soul. When storms come in your life, what do you do? When storms rise up and there's so much chaos, what do you do? Where do you turn? Who do you trust when it feels like your soul is shattering? Do you run to God or do you want to run away from God? I'm going to tell you just a really, really fast story. One of my coworkers, his name is Mike. He's actually the campus pastor at the Prosper campus, and many of you know his story, but I don't remember how long ago, 22 years ago now, he got a phone call from somebody, and his wife, his 3 kids, and his mother-in-law were all hit by a drunk driver and died in a car accident. This man, his wife, and his 3 kids, one was a newborn baby, 5, 3, and a newborn baby, and his mother-in-law all died. And he's remarried now and has 2 kids, and one day I'm pretty close with his wife, and I was asking her, like, hey, how did you, like, meet Mike? Like, what happened? And she told me the story, but one thing that she said to me was this: I knew he was the right one because when chaos happened in his life, he ran to God instead of away from him. Yeah. My question to you is, can the same thing be said about you? When chaos and storms happen in your life, do you run to God or do you run away from him? Does it feel so out of control that you need to have some semblance of control, and so you do what you can do, which, by the way, will never be enough? God is the one who can give us ultimate peace when chaos and storms happen in our life. The sin that we turn to can cause us so much harm. And I would say that probably some of us in this room have been shattered by consequences of our sin, our actions, words against us. Maybe your heart has been crushed, divided, torn into a place that it feels irreversible, and like there's no way God can fix you or help with all the brokenness that you feel. Maybe like a hammer thrown at a glass house that actually breaks the first time. Maybe. You get it. Maybe your soul is experiencing a breaking and a shattering like never before, and you are desperate for the peace that only God can give. And I'll tell you this, you can search everywhere, and you will never be able to fill the hole in your heart and calm the raging storm of your soul. Or you can turn to Jesus and find the gift of wholeness, of completeness, a peace that will not be found in this world. Really, the choice is yours. John 14:27 says this, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give you is a gift the world cannot give. So don't be troubled or afraid. You will not find the peace that God has and is and can give you in this world by doing anything that this world has to offer. You will only find that through Jesus. Peace, I really believe, is found in a person. And the person that we can find peace in is Jesus. Jesus is the only person who can calm your inner world. What's wild is when you think of the world's version of peace, I don't know what you think of, and maybe you think of other things in this, but I think of vacations, trips, drinking, maybe substances, mindfulness, a digital detox, a certain vibe on our Instagram, a certain aesthetic, whatever it is, whatever your version of peace is, I'm telling you, if it is not Jesus, it will not be enough. It will never bring you wholeness. It will never make you feel complete. That will only come through Jesus. Honestly, I've been thinking about this, and it makes sense to me that the Greek word for peace is eirene. It makes sense that we feel most whole when we are with Jesus and when we are following him, when we are totally surrendered to him. Since he's the one who made us and created us, he knows what wholeness is for us. We don't even always know that. And as humans, we don't know the best thing for our lives. I will tell you that. We have to say, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? How do you want me to do it? And that's when peace comes. And when he leads you and guides you to all truth, to all righteousness, that's where wholeness comes from, because he is bringing you to the exact person he created you to be. You don't know who that is. God does. He knows who that is. And so you want to feel the most whole and complete, then search for God's peace. And you find that by trusting in him, by leaning into him, by loving him. That's where you find it. He's the only person who can help you, who can lead you. He's the only thing that will quench a thirst that you may feel like you're having. He's the only person who can pick up broken pieces and join them back together again in wholeness. I would never be able to do that, but God can do that. We know that we can come to Jesus for peace because he traded his broken body for our peace. When he went to the cross, he did it so that we could have the peace of salvation, the peace of rescue, the peace of being whole when we're broken. He is the one who could do that. He did it so that we didn't have to fight for it our whole lives. All we would have to do is ask. Philippians 4:7 says this, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. We don't understand the peace that can come from God. This verse literally says, the peace of God which surpasses all understanding. It means even in the chaos of this world, we can feel peace. We can feel anchored to Jesus and feel whole and feel complete, even when there's so much chaos going on around us, to us, directed at us, in our proximity. We can feel peace, and we are not going to understand it, but we can trust it. As long as we are putting our trust in Jesus, we can have that peace. And it will guard our hearts and our minds. Like, it's actual protection. The peace of God is protection. And we may not understand it. It seems so like, wait, what? How does that even work? I don't know. I don't. But what I do know is I've seen it happen in my own life. This peace that comes directly from God, that I don't understand, that I can't get. We can have it. Maybe you're walking through something, and it is horrific to walk through. Or maybe you've walked through something and you still don't feel at peace. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you don't feel whole. Maybe you don't feel complete. Can I tell you that God wants to offer you his peace? He is peace, and he wants to give it to you freely. It comes with us trusting God and saying, God, I trust you. I'm giving all of this to you, and I want you to fill all of this worry and fear, anxiety. I want you to fill it with your peace so that the only place that I will turn is to you. Would y'all pray with me? God, thank you again for the gift that you've given us, and that gift is peace. God, I pray that as we are oftentimes searching for things that give us peace, we oftentimes turn to the wrong things. God, I pray that every one of us in this room, our very first instinct, God, would be to turn to you for healing, for wholeness, so that we can feel complete. God, I pray that we wouldn't try to fill the chaos and the craziness of what's happening in our lives and us just wanting to control it with random things that will not help. But God, I pray our first instinct would be to turn to you. And that just like the disciples on the boat, even if there's fear, even if there's confusion, that we turn to you and say, God, help us. And we would literally see him stretch his hand out and say, peace, be still. And that we can feel that calm and that peace in our lives. God, we need you. Be with us. In your holy name we pray. Everybody said, amen.